Boys and girls, we are back. Truman Lake Fishing Intel Expert Roundtable Dinner. We've been a little bit behind schedule. I've had a few things going on, just getting moved and getting my fiance lined up with a new dental gig here in Clinton, Missouri. So we're super excited about that. But we're excited. It's end of September. This guy dinner, Expert Roundtable, is going to be kind of a combination of September, October, and then we'll be back again in November. So first of all, just want to say thank you to Nini's Italian Steakhouse and Catering, based out of Warsaw, Missouri. They helped sponsor these dinners. They had chicken fettuccine and a homemade lasagna for us tonight. It was fantastic. And they also do catering. So if you're looking for catering events, Thanksgiving's upcoming, Christmas, they do a lot of catering for that. And they're starting to do to-go meals as well. They'll do meal preps where you can go in and buy 5 meals so you have lunch for the week. So a lot of really cool stuff that they're doing. If you stop in and eat at the restaurant and you're a member of Truman Lake Fishing Intel, you get a free appetizer. So that's pretty darn cool as well. Additionally, I want to thank Englishport Marine. They help sponsor these videos as well. Englishport Marine is located conveniently between Clinton and Warsaw, Missouri. You have your selection of Phoenix boats, Camus boats, and low boats. Anything you're looking for, they can get you taken care of. I believe they just won, what was that big award? The best in the state.
Yep, for Phoenix boats, I believe.
Yeah, so regardless, check them out. Englishport Marine between Warsaw and Clinton, Missouri, and they'll get you hooked up. It's never too early to be thinking about new boats for next year. So with that, we're excited to get here tonight. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We have some competitors here among us that were down at Crappie Masters National Championship at Lake D'Arbonne, and Richard did pretty darn good.
Damn right.
That's right. I know Hunter and Darren a little salty.
But they done good as well.
They did. They did really good, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. But before we get started, I want to introduce everybody here tonight. To my left, we have a new guest that you haven't seen, but he's contributed fishing reports in the past to the website, Chet Dothett, who is an 8-time or 7-time? 8-time Bassmaster Classic competitor. So pretty dang cool that he's joining us tonight. He's got a long history on Truman Lake, so we're excited to pick his brain on the bass fishing coming up ahead of the Big Bass Bash, some of these kayak tournaments this weekend. Richard Bowling, familiar face. Richard Bowling's guide service. Got his son Hunter Bowling right next to me. He does some guiding too and hammering on some big old slabs. And Dylan Stocking over to Hunter's right, Get Outdoors guide service, and Darren Langford, fishing extraordinaire.
Yeah, it's not catching it. Love to fish. Good catching.
So let's get started. First, I want to talk about the Crappie Masters National Championship. It was in Lake D'Arbonne. I wanted to ask you guys first, how do you qualify for the Crappie Masters National Championship? You just fish some of the event. You have to place a certain.
You have to score a certain amount of points on the year, or finish high enough in the big invitationals.
Okay.
So I guess they're not really invitationals; they're qualifiers.
I think they got 5 of them a year.
Okay.
And then they got the Missouri Trail, which you can qualify through that.
The club deals, club tournaments.
Yes.
Yep.
So it was at Lake D'Arbonne this year. You guys all shared a fishing camp together. What was that like?
A lot of lies told. A lot of lies told.
There wasn't a lot of lies told. There's a lot of just give them a little bit of information and don't set the hook. Just let them. Hunter said, "Dad, you and Larry get in my head."
Him and Larry just sit there and give you a little bit, and then like thinking.
You know, you can't. When you're there and they ask, you can't lie, but you can't tell everything you know. And we didn't. Hunter asked me how many pounds you're going to have tomorrow. I said between 11 and 12 and a half. Did not lie.
You beat it. You had over 12 and a half.
I did the first day. So, but that's what we knew we could, or we thought we could do, and so we wouldn't. You don't lie, but you can't tell They don't tell all their secrets if they ask. I'm not going to ask Hunter.
Well, yeah, we do. We're straight as can be.
I call bull crap. Good times though.
It was a good time.
What's the smack talk like after day one, and you guys are back at camp eating a big dinner? I mean, what's the conversation?
Well, after day one, me and Hunter was definitely in the bottom of the barrel. Richard was leading.
Yep.
Then our other people at Gorham's was rooming with us, and they were setting
Fifth or
sixth. And me and Hunter was down there at 24th. And we was like, oh boy, because we actually caught what we thought we'd catch.
Mhm.
We just really didn't catch them real good crap. And we caught them decent. They weren't that big. But yeah, it was a little rough. But the next day, the only saving grace we had, me and Hunter increased 4 or 5 places. Everybody else went down.
Give
4 or
us
5
one more
or 20.
day. We passed the Gorms, we're gonna get him next.
Yeah, one more day. He
You
was
don't
in
get a
trouble.
week, you get 2 days.
And there was 139 boats total competing. I mean, these are the best crappie anglers in the country, and some Clinton boys ended up bringing home the victory. So that was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I don't know how many on the top 40, which that's what they pay and give prizes to, but the Missouri probably had the best showing of any state. It's
Yeah, there's a
unreal.
bunch of them.
I'm gonna say in the top 10 there's probably 5 people out of Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
And just right down the road here at Tightwad, Missouri, the guy, TJ and Alex Palmer won it. So
Mhm.
pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, and Hunter and Darren, I know they talk like they're all disappointed. They were in freaking 21st place.
You know what? When you
talking-
travel like that, and they're in Darren is a bass fisherman,
Right.
so he's coming to this crappie. I don't care what they say. You just watch. Years to come, you watch. Me and Gary's been doing it a long time,
Uh-huh.
so we're past due. They're gonna surpass us. I promise you, they will.
Yep.
They will.
So, were you catching a lot of numbers down there as well? Kind of like what you see up here?
There's a lot of fish in that lake.
Yeah.
It's a fun fishery really. I mean, there's a lot of fish, a lot of shad, but the crappie are different down there. They're skinny and just kind of built different.
Yeah. So, kind of walk me through what it was like fishing and maybe compare it a little bit to what you see up here.
What we just find a ditch, basically.
You just try to find. It was like fishing a farm pond almost. There really wasn't. There was a couple of creeks, but there really wasn't. The feeder arms didn't contribute
Mm-hmm.
like they do here. So it was more fishing a farm pond. You just had to look for any difference in that bottom contour. That's what we look for. We just look for anything. It might just change 6-8 inches in depth wise, but the fish would be there.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned something that the fish were incredibly spooky.
Yeah, and going into it, Gary and I knew that. I've never seen the lake. I've never done really any research on it. There's nothing you can research on this lake because it's not big.
Mm-hmm.
I had my Humminbird.
There's not a Lake D'Arbonne fishing intel?
I don't think so.
There's not.
That's not a big lake. But when you look on Humminbird, all I see is a big. It's just blue. There's nothing, no contours, no nothing.
Mm.
So me and Gary went in the blind, but you know that when you get out of that channel, it's going to be 10 foot, and then you're going to find a little depression that's going to be 12 foot. So you, in your mind, thinking of crappie, they're going to be spooky all week long. They're going to be jacked with, so they're going to look for them in deeper spots. So Gary and I, the first day, that's what we did. We side skinned, we graphed, and we found 4 spots the first day, and then 4 spots that we found the first day is what helped us do well in the Nationals. And it would go from 8, 7, 8, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, and then it dropped to 14 and come back up. But it wouldn't be as wide, as wide as a living room or something. It wasn't wide, but it would meander ways. And if you could follow that with your live scope, you can kind of tell where the bait comes up at, and that's what we did most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you say they get pressured and they go for that deeper pocket, I mean, is that something that holds true on Truman as well, especially when they're getting hammered on in the upper Grand?
They don't get as spooky.
They don't run like them fish.
Up here, I can use a 10-foot rod, and if I have to pitch to them, I can. But down there, the first couple days, we were casting to them. Well, then, honestly, I listened to Dad finally, and he's using a 13-foot rod. You could strap a bunch of line on. You could pitch way out there too. I mean, 20, 25 foot out there instead of casting, but you're a lot more accurate.
Yeah.
Float down to them. Well, Truman, we don't really ever have to do that.
Yeah.
So those fish, I mean, you got within 10, 15 foot of them, they're gonna run from the boat.
Yeah.
You could if you drug your foot across the carpet like this, they'd run. If you shut a live well, they'd run.
The crappie jump in your live well.
Oh, they jump like it.
We had one in practice. It was a good one. We had it on ground. It was all lined up, and it wasn't even practice. It was a tournament because I was back there calling, and I had set the fish down in there real easy and just let the door shut. And I stood up, and Hunter had him, and we was just coasting up to him real slow. You kind of just had to coast. You hit the trolling motor.
Oh yeah, they're gone.
But one of them fish jumped in the live well, and he heard the culling buoy just hit the lid. Boom, gone. It's like,
I mean, and it's not like it's boom.
Oh, they're
it's
gone.
like you're not
You don't chase
following.
them down like, if you're a grenade or here, if you spook one and what they'll do like this. They'll go about 10 of these, and then they stop and they'll cock sideways so you can get another pitch on. They don't mind. They just keep right on.
Plus, there's so many trees. It's all timber down there.
Yeah, you can't just keep chasing.
You can't chase
Yeah.
it.
Right into stuff. Yeah.
So, because there's like running lanes on that lake, correct?
Yeah, Darren likes them.
Yeah. Yeah, being colorblind and going through the lane lake is not good.
Okay.
Now that one's not too bad because it had poles and they were right across from each other. But you get to some of them where they're offset. Like you got down
That's
by
where
the
you have
dam,
trouble at.
they're offset, and when it makes them turns, as long as it's straight, you're good. But makes them turns. There's several times I'd be cruising along and Hunter'd go.
And the
I'd
problem
be
is,
like, oh, I'm on the wrong side of the red one because I can't tell it's red till I get right to it.
and a lot of times whenever it would do like that, there'd be great big stumps
I mean,
off the channel.
big.
If you got right off the channel,
If
you're
you
good.
if you get outside and running
You're
lanes at
screwed.
all,
Yeah.
you're
Oh.
toast.
They're probably the spookiest fish that I've ever seen fishing for crappie. I've been all over, and they're the spookiest fish I've ever seen.
Well, you had a similar story what Darren was just saying, where your partner was in the back, like holding a couple of fish, trying to pull them.
he's I get on a roll, and if you get the right fish, you can get on them quick, and man, you can get them in the boat quick. And I tell Gary, and that's on film. I don't know if it'll make it. I hope it does. I said, do not take a step, and I'd catch it. He's standing back there froze like.
Sounds like you're
Free-
deer hunting.
Yeah, don't move. I got one. And then I'd hook it, and while he'd drop the two fish, they'd come around and net that fish. But if he would take a step in the boat, they're gone.
Unreal.
But, a lot of people cast to them. We've all done it. If you take that 14-foot pole and let out 14 more foot of line, you can pitch out at 28 feet. It's much, for me, and I think I proved it to Hunter.
You proved it to me.
You can pull that line out and you can swing it to them. And if you make a bad pitch, instead of reeling all that in and repitching, you can pull that in, and I can be back on that fish in 2 seconds. To where if you're casting, reel it in, reel it in because you're making a bad pitch. If you learn to use that 14, 16 footer where you pitch to them, and if you miss it, just yank it back in and do it again, and it's going to save you a lot of time.
So Everhart's got like some 18 or 20 footers in there.
I'm working on a deal with a 20-footer.
Oh, really?
I tried to build before I went down there, and I told these boys I took a bunch of my old poles, and they're broke. Don't laugh, I tried this. And I took the eyes off, and I would slide a pole on a pole, and it weighed about 50 pounds. I only got to 18 feet. These are like the first company that comes out with a good 20-foot pole, they're going to be millionaires.
You think he comes up with these weird ideas and everything. You just hear how he's catching a crappie down there. What he's doing. He told me to keep it a secret, but I don't know. You wouldn't believe it. The stuff that goes through that guy's head is
Laying in bed at night.
something's wrong with him.
So, do you think because the water is a lot more dirty up at Truman, does that contribute to them not being as spooky?
Yeah, and it's a bigger lake too. It don't get the pressure. I was on the Upper Grand today, and you was too. We was half a quarter mile apart, but the fish never run down there. I'm telling you, if you got close, but there's a lot of boats. The lake was only 16,000 acres something, but you had to scale that down. The fishing is 5,000 acres. So now, and all of them fish are getting spooky, but they come back the same stuff. So I think it's bred in them now. I mean, even we got there Sunday. There wasn't hardly a boat there. Got there Saturday. Sunday we fished. And them fish were spooky when we got there. There wasn't nobody there.
Yeah.
So I think it's just their breeding now. I think they've learned.
But I think they're a lot like when I went to Western Kansas deer hunting. You'd see you'd be hunting a wide open field, but there'd be a little ditch or something that had just a couple trees in it. If you run that buck out of that tree, them trees the next day, he'd be back. When he was back there, it's the same way with them fish. We had a little ditch we found that had 4 or 5 good ones. As a matter of fact, we named them. We never got to catch them. We fished for them 2 days and never caught them. But every day we'd drop on them. They'd sit there like nothing was around. They'd swim off.
They're
And
good.
then within 20 minutes, you could go back there and they'd be right back. I'm guessing the same. I mean, the same big fish, unless they're
They're
just bucket
good.
fish.
Probably the same ones.
I'm just curious what names were given to these fish.
Brutus,
Brutus, Jethro, Jed.
We were sweet talking them.
Yeah, we had names. And then when we left, I fed them 10 dozen minutes, and we.
They probably
see you in the
never
spring. We'll see you in the spring.
We'll be back in the spring again.
Brutus became Big Brutus. Well, Dylan, you had been on the lake. You didn't go down there. Tell me.
I just stay here and hold down the fort.
That's right. Yeah, you didn't have a whole lot of company up there from the guides, I guess. Tell me what it's been like chasing the crappie around and how you've been finding them.
Well, I mean, pretty much it's been the same for several weeks now. You get in these main lake flats and find the same thing, kind of what they were talking like down there. Find a little ditch where it gets a little deeper in a tree row, and you'll find fish.
Is it easy to see these ditches? Like if you're looking at Navionics, for
Oh, yeah,
example, you
absolutely.
can see those pretty easy. The depth changes. All you got to do is look for the depth changes.
Yeah, and I use Lake Master on hummingbirds, so I can color. You can use your color code, and you can highlight depths you're gonna fish. But those depths show up in those ditches too along there. And I had a guy the other day, and he wanted to learn more about live scope and also the hummingbirds and the Lake Masters. And I zoomed out, and every ditch from Bucksaw to Sparrowfoot
Oh,
had red lines through it where I'd been fishing it.
okay.
And it's just those ditches on the main lake flats that got tree rows in them. There's timber in them, they've got fish on them.
Have you been real deep? Have you been shallow? I mean, where are they sitting these
Pretty
days?
shallow. I mean, you can fish anywhere from the channel, when that main lake flat, from the channel all the way to 4 foot of water and catch fish. So anywhere, I mean, 15 to 4 foot of water.
And they're just sitting
Most of them are about 5-6 foot deep.
Mm-hmm.
Until you get in there shallow, and then they're on the bottom.
Yeah. I know the Upper Grand has kind of been the popular place to be. I mean, what's the bite like? What have you guys been hearing from other parts of the lake on the lower end? Is it still a bunch of little ones that you got to weed through, or?
I haven't heard much about below Bucksaw. I think the Osage is doing pretty good.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, what I've heard
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah.
catching fish on the Grand, it's closer.
Is it mainly a crappie, I mean, a jig bite or a minnow bite?
I've just been using jig the last few days.
Using jig.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking earlier before we got started. We don't cover the Pommy as much as we'd like, just because it's the furthest arm away for where most of our contributors are fishing. But Richard spent some time on the Pommy in the past, and there's some good fishing. Darren has as well.
A lot of big black crappie down there. I haven't been down there for years, but a lot of big flats, tree rows, and a lot of cedar trees. And anytime you got cedar, you got fish, and a lot of black crappie down there. But I haven't been there for 10 years.
Yeah. So basically, they're on the flats. When's that transition going to start to occur where it's going to absolutely go nuts? When are they going to start making their way back in the creek? Is that going to happen in October?
There's fish in the creeks now. You can start in those creeks on the Upper Grand and go from front to back to catch fish in them right now. And I think there's more fish out on them flats still, and they'll be there for. I mean, some of them fish will stay there all year, but then the creek bite the next month will get really good.
When
We'll
you
get some cool weather.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I'm tired of sweating.
I know we're supposed to get a little bit of cool down here over the next couple of days. Maybe get some much needed rain.
Yeah.
Lakes, we were talking earlier, lakes what, a half foot low roughly right now?
About 4 inches.
So when do you guys target the bluffs? Is that more of a wintertime thing?
Dead of winter, December, January.
Yeah. Well, we'll be talking more about that then in a couple months.
Yep. Right now it's creeks and flats, yeah.
But it's a jig bite for you.
Yeah, I've just been using jigs.
You've been using minnows.
Everything on minnows. Got home Sunday night or Sunday afternoon and had, I think, 2 trips Monday, and everything caught on minnow. Had 45 early, 45 late. Everything in 7 to 12 foot of water, and very good bite. Way better bite than down there. Every fish we dropped, well, probably caught 2 out of 3 fish here. Good bite. Pulled in on a channel swing the first Monday morning, and there was not a fish, not one. Got off the channel swing, went to the ditches like Dylan's talking, and we hit about 3 ditches and was limited out.
So
Good
now
bite.
they're gonna move up shallow, right? September they're gonna
We
get.
caught this afternoon on our trip. We had 90%, pretty close to where Dylan was, little ditch. Everything in 7 foot of water, and it's like looked like this, laid on the bottom. You can see a crappie laying on the bottom. If you dropped on it, made a good drop, you caught it. No timber. I mean, there's timber there. That fish just be laying down there on the mud.
Yeah, some of them are off the timber and just be, like you said, laying down there on
In
the
between
timber.
trees or something. But yeah, we caught most of them just
See a little
up on
hump.
water.
Were you catching these fish in the past without live scope? Those ones you just described?
With the 360 I could.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, probably not as many, but now then, yeah, catch them all.
Yeah.
They're drop on them all.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I mean, I still see people commenting every now and then on Facebook that live scope's like the worst thing that ever happened to crappie fishing. It ought to be outlawed. And
It's the best thing that'll ever happen to this lake. We
Right.
gotta get rid of some crappie out of this lake.
yeah,
There's too many of them.
well, especially on the lower end.
Especially, here's a for instance, I come in on my trip today, we had our 45 in the cooler, we had a guy come in with a live scope, 2 guys in his boat, and never had a bite. Not one bite.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't know
guy,
how you do that.
guy came in yesterday at 2.
So, I think the live scope, we gotta get some fish out of the lake. We're gonna be like Smithville Lake,
Mhm.
where it's gonna be a lot of little bitty fish. There's a lot of little fish up in the river right now. If you make the wrong drop, you're gonna catch a little fish every time.
Mm-hmm.
So, live scope's a good thing. Don't care what anybody says, listen, it's a good thing.
What are some tips to adjust the graph to tell? I mean, I know the time on the water and catching the fish and seeing, but is there anything you can do to help you understand what you're looking at is a larger fish versus a little one? For someone who's going out for the first time.
I'd say
Is that a
never,
live scope?
never move your. Well, I'd say never move your depth of your forward. How far you're shooting out. You don't know the size of everything. Because if you adjust all the time, you're not gonna know the sizes of stuff.
Yeah.
Keep it the same all the time. Unless you get better at it, then you can kind of expand out, look, and then turn it back in. That's what I see.
Yeah.
That we always know your depth and how big of the fish really are.
Yep.
Shoot out 30 feet, shoot out down 18 feet, and if you get in 3 foot of water, which we do right now, don't set your depth to 5 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you adjust that, it's gonna make that fish look a lot bigger.
Uh-huh.
Keep everything the same.
Yep.
The only thing I touch on my live scope, but I don't know about Dylan, I'm sure he's the same way. You get in shallower, you might key that or take the gain and cut it down a little bit. I usually fish 55 to 62 right now. And if I get in like 5-7 foot of water, I'm down about 50
Mm.
because everything is brighter. But don't touch your depth, don't touch your shooting out, don't touch your color gain, don't touch your backlight. Leave all that set and just fish that depth. I mean, you might get in 10 foot of water and you got this much, here's your graph and you're in 20 foot of water and you get up there in 7 foot. So now you got this much showing, this much is, you don't see nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That fish is the same size.
Fish
if
are
you
still
just-
the same
yeah.
size.
So keep it all the same. The only thing you need to touch is your game.
Yeah. And you said you like 30 feet out, 18 feet down.
I never shoot out 40, never shoot out 20. I never touch nothing on forward or backwards. It's
Yeah.
all the same. I'm at 30 feet, I will tell you if that's a fish that needs to be caught in a tournament.
Yeah. Well, and even in the wintertime, you're not catching crappie much deeper than 18 feet, are you?
Not really. I mean, if I had to in the wintertime, the deepest I've ever caught crappie on Truman Lake is 26 feet deep. And actually years ago it was really cold. Most of the time it's about 16, 17 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Leave it, set it them. If you got a live scope in it, I will say get your live scope if you want to catch fish. Don't go with anything else, get a live scope. Not sponsored by them, none of us are, I don't guess.
I'm
But you
working on
gotta
it
have
for
it.
everybody.
Good, I hope you are. If you got a live scope, you're gonna see the fish. You might not catch them, but you're gonna know that you're dropping on a fish. You're not just wasting time per tree, I can guarantee you.
Yeah.
And the other major thing with live scope, and I learned this, it took me forever to get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
When you think you're going slow enough, you need to slow down some more.
Mm-hmm.
Especially till you learn how to use it. And don't even, when I started fishing with Hunter, I was constantly over there bumping that throttle up a little bit on that dude.
Yeah.
Like, ooh. I'm bass fishing, we move. We
Yeah.
don't sit there all day, but he just slowed down. Basically it's almost where you can see the trees moving on your graph and you really can't tell they're moving in the water. It's just a slow. Now when you get into some of these spots and you're looking, tournaments, some guys
Bump it.
speed up. You
Mhm.
can bump it up a little bit, cover more water.
I cover a lot of water in tournaments, but like Darren been saying, if you got a big tree and there's a fish stuck behind it and you're shining to it, you're not gonna see that fish. You gotta get past it and shine back. And today, I don't know how many how many fish I went back and caught that I'd already went by and I scan, I don't know how many degrees that is, but scan, I see it and I have to come back and, over the shoulder, catch them or whatnot. That's how much they can hide from you. And if you don't drop on their nose right now, you're not going to catch them. You got to hit them on the head.
You gotta get them on and hit
And
it.
if you don't,
If that fish is right there, you better put your jig right there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not
I
a,
mean,
it's not a
it's-
deal where they want to
And
chase a
then
need.
hold it,
Yeah.
and then think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So life scope is a must. It's not gonna hurt the lake. It's gonna help the lake, and we're gonna have bigger crappie in the future. Get some crappie out of the lake, so you need to buy a live scope.
Yeah. On your jigs, what size are you throwing?
I'm using a 32nd right now. I've talked to a couple guys today that were using 8s
Mhm.
and were catching fish, but a 32nd is what I'm using. And 3/8 ounce.
What?
Silver above it.
Yeah. What color? What color do you like to throw right now?
Something with a little bit of flash, that's silver, gold,
Mhm.
anything like that. That's got a little bit of flash. They're seeing that because it's muddy up there. It's muddy water.
Yeah.
And I think they're seeing that a little bit better.
Okay.
But the minnow, I don't know. The minnows, you gotta almost kill your minnows if you bite minnows
Mm-hmm.
because they're moving too much.
Mm-hmm. Well.
Dunk them on the head.
Yeah.
Because they'll get to moving, and then if you move your jig or your bait or anything, them fish they'll. Some of them just follow it and follow it and follow it and follow it, and they'll never eat it.
Yeah.
And some of them will come up there, and as soon as you move it a little bit, they're
Yeah.
gone. So yeah, drop it right down on him, and once he starts, you'll see him shake on there a little bit, start
Mhm.
moving, just hold it.
Get ready.
Well, one thing you and I were talking about the other day was different line selection can potentially affect the way
Mhm.
your bait moves, and you were talking about braid can sometimes get twisted up, and when you drop it down, that bait can spin,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't like that.
Yeah, and I had some guy, we took their boat out, I was messing with their live scope, and they had braid on, and we was using minnows and jigs and everything, they had that weight up there too, and that jig or the minnow below that weight would twist up, and then they drop it down there, and then it untwists when it was down there, and it's moving way too much.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, very
Just sitting there watching that
unnatural way.
jig going, zoo, 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 minnow, and they're not going to like that.
Yeah, that ain't right.
No.
So, interesting. So, water temperatures low 70s. Winds, I mean, when it's like, oh my god, it's gonna go nuts. Is it like 65 degrees, 60, 55? We still got a few weeks.
Probably a week. I mean, it's good now.
Yeah.
Fish are really piling in, getting these creeks or ditches, and I found a ditch late on the same trip, but later in the day. They was packed in there. You could snag them. There's so many of them. So
Yeah.
it's time. You need about a couple more degrees, and we're there.
Yeah. Okay.
But if the water would clean up just a little bit, whew,
It's very dirty.
it could be, you wouldn't have to get it so close to them and
Mhm.
right on their nose, and it'd be stupid good.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna keep the reports coming at you, so you'll know when it's gonna get better like that. So, I want to shift gears and start talking a little largemouth bass fishing on Truman Lake. I want to talk to Chet and have Chet kind of walk us through his history as a fisherman. I want to hear a few stories about what fishing Truman was like back early on, because I know you fished it for a long, long time. But I was hoping you could try to kind of just give us some background about your professional tournament history and some of the Bassmaster Classics and what all that was like.
He fished off the ark, I think.
Well, I grew up fishing farm ponds and strip pits in
Uh-huh.
southeast Kansas, and played football through college and got to play with the big boys part of the year, and
Uh-huh.
tore an ankle up, and that ended that. So I moved up here and went to work for Peabody Coal Company up here at Calhoun.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked there 10 years, and they shut the mine down. Well, I needed to do something, so I was into a couple of bass clubs and made the Federation tournament. It was in Alabama, and ended up third and won an entry fee into a BASS tournament the
Uh-huh.
next year. And it was at Millwood in Arkansas was the closest place. So Al Dunning, old boy, used to live here in town, made jigs and spinnerbaits. And I went down and fished it. And I really enjoyed it. Didn't do very good there, but it was a fun deal, and I really got enthused about it. And that was in 1978, and I started fishing the tournaments in '80 and made the classic my first year.
Mm.
And say it was an experience. I'd never been to Thousand Islands in New York.
Yeah.
We didn't have water that clear, and I
Uh-huh.
never fished for smallmouth
Mm-hmm.
like they do up there. But I really enjoyed it. Say, ended up making 8 Bassmaster Classics. Should have made about 12 or 13 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Back then they went by total pounds for the year.
Uh,
And 5 tournaments I missed at less. One time it was 2 ounces,
oh.
and 5 times less than 2 pounds. One fish for the whole year.
Yeah.
And but I won 2 national tournaments. Won one at Thousand Islands in New York in '87, and won one in New Orleans down in the Delta in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
And I started guiding on the lake when they built the lake. In fact, we used to put in at Warsaw, run through the dam when they were building the dam and fish the rivers.
Really?
And it was tremendous.
Yeah.
And the first 6-7 years this lake was filled, I said, I've fished a lot of tournaments over the country. I wouldn't have traded this lake for any of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was really, really tremendous fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And you could catch them about any way you wanted to catch them. And then I moved to Florida. Started guiding down there in the winter. And I could stay busier down there than I did up here. They quit promoting the lake quite as much as they did when it was new.
Mm-hmm.
And I guided on Lake Okeechobee for 38 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that lake too.
Yeah.
But I had a voice 3 years ago, you need to move home. You
Yeah.
need to move. I don't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I got a sister that lives just south of town out here. And I moved back 3 years ago, and I'm trying to get back into guiding on it again. But
Yep.
it's a lot different than it was when it was new.
Yep.
They still live on a few of the places, but a few of the places that I used to really catch, I can't buy fish off of them now.
Mm-hmm.
And say right now, it's pretty tough out there. We just need some cool weather.
Mm-hmm.
These things are still on their summer patterns.
Mhm.
They're out there in that 10, 15 foot of water. If I was going to be fishing a tournament this weekend, I would be throwing a big worm,
Yep.
like a 10-inch worm, or a square bill crankbait.
Mm-hmm.
And mainly on the points, and they're starting to get out in the flats some.
Yeah.
But it's the shad are everywhere, right? I mean, but you don't see them schooling around yet.
Mm-hmm.
We just need to cool this water down another 5-6 degrees, and they'll start moving to the pockets and the creeks and stuff. And
Yep.
so,
Well, some of the areas you probably like to fish in the past, you might not even be able to get to anymore with some of the siltation.
oh yeah, no, you can't get up the creeks and the good creeks up the like up back into T-Bows and up the Osage. You can't get in Wablo or none of them. They've all sealed it in. You can't get a bass boat to them.
Well, yeah, especially at this lake level that we're at.
Yeah.
Now the kayakers this weekend that are allowed to put in anywhere, I know Wablo was where one of the big kayak tournaments was won last year. So, you know, for the kayakers, and there's some guys that had bass boats that have transitioned over to the kayak world and have done extremely well. Chad Davidson is one of them. I interviewed him. He won a big championship or a big tournament here not too long ago, and he was a big bass boat guy, and just cost him a lot of money and had a few breakdowns, and he got tired of it. And the kayak, it's like, well, now he's got his kayak rigged out. I mean, he's got friggin' Ultrex on it and everything. And so, but you can still get them in places that you can't get a bass boat. So it makes getting into those creeks.
Those fish don't have any pressure to them.
Right,
At all.
right. There's probably a lot of fish that stay in there all year and never get bothered.
Oh yeah, the creek's full all year long.
Yeah. So, what color worm you like on Truman? Everyone kind of says the same color.
I mainly fish the lower end. That's where I lived.
Uh-huh.
And this year, watermelon any color.
Okay.
Watermelon red, watermelon green.
Mm-hmm.
It don't matter as long as it was watermelon.
Mm-hmm.
But they kind of got off of it now. I'm catching them on kind of a plum,
Yeah.
grape with blue glitter.
Yeah.
Anything, you know, a little more color to it now.
Yep.
Producing better.
Yeah, plum and red shad, it seems like, or what I hear a lot. Are you flipping the trees with that worm, or do you like to drag that worm on points?
Both.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, they're on the points early in the morning, and then I think they move to them trees.
Mhm.
And the rest of the day, I just pitch it in the trees from 5 to 13 foot of water.
Mm-hmm. What's the biggest bass you ever pulled out of Truman?
I caught one fall up in Tebow, out along the creek channel in about 30, 35 foot of water on a big spinner bait.
Mm-hmm.
She weighed 10.
Wow.
It was the biggest one I ever caught out of the lake.
Yeah, that's impressive. I mean, when was the last time we've heard of a double-digit bass
Long time.
being pulled out? Yeah, yeah.
That one.
Now, another thing you've told me in the past, Chet, you like to throw some topwater out fairly deep water.
This year, for some reason, they never got out in them deep trees.
Mhm.
And I like to fish them suspended fish out in them deep trees because they don't get the pressure that everybody else gets them on the banks.
Yeah.
But this year, I couldn't catch them out there.
Mhm.
They just did not move out there that I could find in my favorite old trees that I used to catch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happened to them, but they just never did get out there.
Yeah. Are your favorite old trees still high above the water, or are they cut off at the
A lot of them you can't see.
Yeah.
You better not be running through it.
Yeah. Yeah. What I'm just kind of curious a little bit more about the Bassmaster experience. You fished it 8 times, and then now it's a massive deal. It's like going to the Super Bowl. I know it's like going to the Super Bowl back then, but the media coverage, I wasn't around, so I don't know. What was it like compared to now when you see it on TV?
Well, the first time you make it, you're just in awe of everything going on around you. But after you've made it once, you kind of slow down. Okay, this is what I need to be doing,
Right.
and you focus in a lot better. And see, I've had the winning fish on in 2 tournaments and couldn't get him in the boat.
Mm.
That's the one that really hurt.
Yeah.
Best I ever finished was 3rd in the
Mhm.
classic. But I mean, everything just got to go your way.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't, it costs you, and that's what hurts.
Yeah.
It's like back when you fished the classic, who was like the main professionals that fished it?
Say now, with all the new depth finders, live scopes and everything, it's so much easier. They know what they're going to do before they ever go to the lake.
Yeah.
I mean, they've already looked her up on the computers.
Right.
Back then, we just had flashers.
Yeah.
Okay, I know there's an old house foundation out there. It'd take us a half a day with that flasher to find it. But I mean, see, now these young boys are tough, but competing against Bill Dance and Roland Martin and them guys.
So those guys you fished against back then?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Did it grow?
Oh yeah.
That's cool. He's my idol.
But Larry Nixon, I think, to me, I know Rick Clun gets, and Rick's, don't get me wrong,
Mm-hmm.
Rick's one of the greatest to ever do it. But day in, day out, I think Larry Nixon, to me, was probably the best fisherman to ever do it. Yeah. And so you had 2 types of fishermen back then. You had runner and gunners,
Uh-huh.
which Denny was a runner and gunner, and Nixon was a pull into a spot and never leave that area till it's time to go back.
Well, that's
And
what Richard does.
most of the time,
He's
I
swamped.
think, most of the time, I think the guys that go in, I know I was. If I could go into an area and stay there and work bushes or flats or whatever, it's when I done my best. Now on this lake, I was a runner and gunner in the summer,
Mhm.
but I had 100 places that I could pull up and make 5 casts on it. And if I didn't catch from 1 to 3 or 4 off of it in them 5 casts, I was gone to the next one. But after about 10 years, I kept seeing the same boats ahead of me leaving. And they finally figured my trail out that I had.
Mhm.
But I say, I loved this lake. When it was new, it was to say it was as good as any lake in the country.
So with that, you talked about you wouldn't trade it for any lake in the country. I mean, nowadays there's still bass around. but it's a little tougher. I mean, what do you attribute that to other than maturity of the lake? I mean, do you think the population
I
is...
wish we could get the Corps to, or the Conservation Department to really shop for bass and see how many bass per acre we have.
Mm-hmm.
And say, Okeechobee, we've got 600 bass per acre
Wow.
down there.
Mhm.
That's what they figured out they got down there. And I don't think we've got that many here.
I'd say no.
And, you know, I know a lot of people like to fish for stripers and hybrids, and it's a fun fish to catch, but there's a lot more percent of people bass fish than fish for them.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they would
Yeah.
stock them in here.
Yeah. Well, there is a podcast Jeff Falkenberry and I did, Endless Season Outdoors podcast, where we talked with the biologist, and the current thinking is they're never going to stock bass because they're naturally reproducing, and but maybe with our Truman Lake Fishing Intel community, we might be able to chirp.
Well, I heard they stocked a bunch of spoonbill, and I'm not sure they need to do that now that I've got live scope.
Have you been to the
Oh
other
my
states?
goodness,
I had
these things are
one
everywhere.
jump in the boat today.
Oh,
He come up to hear the
Yeah.
guitar from me. I
Yeah.
right in front of the boat. You're down
2 days ago, I think.
Osage ain't bad.
But,
Oh, Osage
but one
salt.
fish they are stocking here, I'm catching walleye pretty good right
Yeah,
now.
their walleye's pretty good.
And I know they're putting them in here.
Yeah.
So why can't we put the bass in here with them too?
Mhm.
But the walleye are starting to bite pretty good in shallow, 5 foot of water on pea gravel banks, on crankbaits.
Are you talking like square bill crankbaits? What?
I caught, the first one was square bill and the second one was on a DT6.
Good keepers?
The first one was small, the second one, well, it was
Yeah.
2 to 3 pounds.
Eater size.
Mhm.
Heck yeah.
And then last week I pulled up on one spot and caught 2, 15 to 17 inches.
I don't see why you couldn't do exactly what you do on Stockton and Table Rock, which is drop a freaking night crawler down on a point with a jig head and just wait. Because that's what you do, and they hammer. I don't see why you couldn't do that on Truman.
You'll catch a lot more
Cranking.
catfish.
Probably. yeah, that's
We
true.
got a lot of catfish here.
That's true.
No, they do. I mean, you can. I know people that actually fish for walleye,
Mhm.
and they catch them. I mean, if you went out and actually tried to catch them, you can catch them.
Yeah. Well, that is one thing that like, I think we've talked about it. If I could figure out how to catch walleye on the regular, it might be all I ever fish for. But Darren, what's your thoughts on the old bass fishing? We got the Big Bass Bash coming up. We got these kayak tournaments coming up. I just want to get your expertise, some of your advice on what you'd be doing, different areas of the lake you might be targeting, and why.
Well, this year everything's been late or just not happening. We've basically completely missed the summer bite.
Mm-hmm.
I feel we have. The fish never really moved out in their summer pattern. I never thought they did. They pretty well went from June to dead summer,
Mhm.
flat stuff, and points. But getting out there suspended didn't happen. But last weekend, was it last weekend? 2 weekends ago, they had that charity tournament out Bucksall.
Uh-huh.
That tournament was won by David McCormick,
Uh-huh.
and I'm sure he was fishing deep. The guys that took second, I'm sure they were fishing shallow.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think you can fish however you like to fish right now. If you want to fish out deep, I think you can catch them. If you want to fish shallow, I think you can catch them. If it was me right now and then a Big Bass Bash, the big thing people got to understand, you're just looking for one.
Mm-hmm.
If you go out there thinking you want to catch 20 fish a day, you're not going to win.
Mm-hmm.
You got to go out there and catch that one. You know, it gets won a lot on swim baits at Lake the Ozarks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, people don't fish swim baits a lot for lemons.
Mm-hmm.
They fish it for a big fish. So go out and fish for a big fish. So that top water is a tremendous big fish bait. Always had been.
Mm-hmm.
A jig is a big fish bait. A big worm's a big fish bait. I mean, spinnerbait's a big fish bait. Now, we're going to have a little water cool off just a little bit for a spinnerbait to really work good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it'll work now, but I mean, to work good, you need wind. If you get wind, you don't need it to cool off too much.
Mhm.
It's cool enough, they'll start biting it.
Sunny day, cloudy day, doesn't matter?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
You can just change. You can change your blade. You can alternate your blades a little bit, but right now you want to fish a big, at least a ½ ounce spinnerbait with big willow leaf blades on it,
Mhm.
bigger blades, and just slow it around through them trees. It's pretty easy fishing, and you'll catch a big one.
Mhm.
You look for them drop offs and little ledges and stuff like that, or just get your jig on and your big worm and fish points. That's a good thing to do. But first couple hours a day, cloudy or sunny. If it's cloudy, I'd probably fish the top water a lot.
Mhm. We're talking buzzbait, big spook, super spook.
I'd probably fish a big spook and that big plopper.
Mm.
And you know, buzzbait, yeah, I like buzzbaits more in the spring than I do now.
Mhm.
Now, I know Lake of the Ozarks, they catch them really good along the docks, but we don't have the docks.
Right.
I think a big spook works better now. 'Cause the
Mhm.
fish that are out there in that deeper water, which they really haven't moved out deep this year. So, but there's still big ones roaming out there. They're out there.
Mhm.
The ones that can win are out there, and you just fish it out there amongst some shad. But you can do the same thing. You throw the big square bills. If I win, I'd have a square bill, a jig, a worm, and a spook.
Mhm.
I'd have 4 or 5 rods, and that'd be all I have. And I'd always have that spook untied, unhooked, and just dang on over the
Yeah.
side.
Yeah. Just
You
ready.
don't never have it hooked up
I had a
because you might just need to drop that
couple
rod.
Japanese boys a couple weeks ago, and then I had them again last weekend. And we pulled up on the spot, and I mean, the fish come up, finally, a school of them come up right there beside us. And one of them had one of them giant California swim baits. And I looked down, I said, as soon as he threw that in there, he just bowed up on him, about a 3-pounder.
Yeah.
I mean, it climbed all over that big swim bait.
That's awesome.
You gotta get to them quick.
Yeah.
Bass, largemouth aren't like whites. Whites will come up and stay up for a while.
Mhm.
Chasing largemouth, they kind of come up and they don't take very much time and they're back down. And once they go down, they suspend and they get hard to catch.
Mhm.
But you take that spook and just have it ready,
Mhm.
at the ready, and go fishing. But I would concentrate on the main lake. It hasn't cooled off enough
They
for them
haven't
to
got
move
up
in
the
the
creek
back.
yet,
Yeah.
I don't think.
Just concentrate on the main lake and fish the points and the flats and the ditches on the main lake, and just go to town and flip as many trees as you can flip.
Mhm.
And just always listen for that, boom,
Mhm.
and then fire that. Just drop your rod. Don't reel it in. Don't take no time. Just
Yeah.
drop that rod, grab that other one,
Yeah.
let him have it.
What color jig you like to throw?
I'm black and blue this time of year. I mean,
Mhm.
just that's about all I throw. You can, if you get down the lower end, you can throw some more natural colors, some
Mhm.
green pumpkin and stuff. But black and blue is going to work about anywhere.
Mhm.
I like to throw a swimming jig most of the time on this lake because you usually fish a shallow, but especially this time of year.
Mhm.
And I really won't work the bottom like you would in the spring because you're imitating crawdads more in the spring. And right now you'd be imitating more of a bluegill or a
Mhm.
perch, and I'd more yo-yo it through
Okay.
there. I might let it come in contact with the bottom, but not for very long.
Yeah.
I'd more yo-yo it through the trees or swim it.
Mhm. Interesting. I don't hear. I mean, everyone talks about a jig. I don't hear a lot of people talking about a swim jig on Truman, but you can't be the only one throwing it.
No, there's a lot of people throw it. There's a lot of people throw swim jigs.
They just tell you.
Yeah.
Gee,
Yeah.
Swim jigs. I mean, you fish them. You know, a lot of people throw chatterbaits.
Mhm.
They're a lot like it, but they just don't have the vibration. But swim jig and get you a good action trailer on it.
Mhm.
Just go to town, and it's just easier to cast. And you know, if they're wanting it moving like that, if they do
Mhm.
want it moving like that, you know, you can take it off your flipping stick and maybe put it on a little bit. Not really a spinnerbait rod, but still a stiff rod, but not
Mhm.
as stiff as your flipping stick.
Mhm.
A lot of times when it's moving like that, they'll hit it like a spinnerbait. Well, you need to let them load up and then
Yeah.
get them.
That's what I was gonna ask,
Otherwise,
what
you
if you-
yank and you'll yank it right out of the mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. That was what I was gonna ask. What the bite feels like on that.
Most of the time when you're swimming it, they'll knock it slack.
Okay.
You'll be yo-yoing it through there and your line's tight, and all of a sudden you'll either feel it or you'll
Mhm.
just lose your bait completely.
Yeah.
They just come up behind it and grab it, and you're like, nothing there.
Wham!
You need to be reeling real fast
Yeah.
until you feel him and then let him have it.
Yeah.
pencil sharpener.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Well, that's a lot of good information for folks that are getting out there ahead of this weekend, I know we haven't talked a lot about the catfish or the hybrids of the white bass, so I guess we can touch on that real quick. Dylan, what's the cat bite been like?
Oh man.
All good on trees.
No, the Jeff's still getting into the catfish, and you can follow him on Facebook, follow his reports on Truman Lake Fishing Intel. You know, anywhere, whether you're in the Upper Grand, the Osage, you can be in 5 feet of water, you can be in 20 feet of water. Cody's fishing anywhere from 20 to 40 feet here in the last couple days, and brush cut shad is the ticket. Windy flats, channel ledges. I mean, it's pretty standard. You've done some catfishing in the past. I mean, what would you be doing? I mean, anything different than that?
10 foot of water drifting the flats right now until the water gets colder.
Yep.
Gotta have fresh bait though, like you said.
Yeah. Now, if they want to find fresh bait, it sounds like it's
Everywhere.
yeah.
Turn your graph on, don't matter if you got a live scope or not, and throw your net and you'll catch it.
Yeah. So, I know if you're on the lower end, if you look at the reports, Osage Bluff Marina did a report earlier this week. They got shad loaded up all over in their cove and the coves next to them. So, good catfish bait type of shad. So, if you're looking for the hybrid type of shad, a lot of the hybrid guys are wanting those 4 inchers, 4 to 5 inchers. You can get away with 3.5. I know Jack Vanderpool's been fishing 3 to 4 inchers and catching them. So the fishing hasn't quite. I mean, it's really good during the summertime. It kind of is in a transition stage right now. But you like to get after the white bass at some point in the fall. I can't remember what weekend it is or what day it's
About
usually.
the last week of October.
Okay.
Water cools off, they get on them points about that deep of water.
Yeah.
Foot deep.
And you're just throwing rooster tails,
You can
pop
throw a bare
bars.
hook. Yeah, anything you want to throw, yeah, they're just up there eating.
Yeah.
And then if you miss one, there's another one going to eat it, and if you miss it, another one. You just keep reeling until you hook one.
Yeah. Do you guys see the numbers of white bass up in the Upper Grand compared to on the lower end?
There's not, to me, there's not as many, but there's quite a few right now. And say if this is true, the white bass is
On
right
top.
there, and the crappie's
Probably be below it.
And the white bass looks like a crappie sitting on it.
If it starts going like this, swimming around, don't catch it.
You circle your bait about 3 times and you go way
Yeah,
off.
don't catch it.
You got a white bass.
So right now, I mean, if you drop on that fish stuck to that tree, it's going to act just like a crappie. It's
Mhm.
not moving yet. Get it out there. It's not a crappie sitting up foot underwater. It's not a crappie. It's a white bass. A big white bass.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
A trip 2 days ago, I don't know if they caught it. Well, we pulled up the first one, we pulled up to, I go, that's a white bass. But there was a crappie underneath of it. I go, drop it down, drop it down. He goes, that one up top. And I was like, that's a white bass. And he caught it anyway. It's a white bass. They did it about 4 times. I think I was like,
Told you so.
And it probably spooks the crappie, I imagine.
Nope, it don't.
no.
Oh, no.
No.
You can catch that crappie right after you throw that
Yeah.
white bass back.
No, good. Add a little extra tug of war right
Yeah.
before. Well, I think we covered everything pretty good. Heard some good stories, and Chet, is really awesome having you join us tonight. And of course, for all of you watching this, this video is now exclusive. It used to be available to free members as well, but that was just kind of for the first year. But now, as a paying member, you guys are the only ones that have access to this. So if you know someone who wants to see these and you think would find value, be sure to let them know. Become a premium member. We just did another, I think I tallied it, we're at 62 fishing reports for the month of September.
For the month?
For the month.
Whew.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're doing a lot of fishing reports, and no matter what you see on Facebook and any of those free Facebook groups, you know, there's some good information in there, but it isn't the expert information from guys like this sitting around the table that are going into detail, and we're really proud of that, and we're going to keep it coming. So I think the last couple of months we've actually touched 60 fishing reports a month. Just a little update on the website for you guys. We've been around, we launched August 14th of 2020, so we're a year and a month old, and we're pushing 1,600 members, so we're super excited about that. We anticipate probably having close to 2,500 members by next spring. We've done over 730 fishing reports in a year and 1 month, covering crappie, bass, catfish, white bass, some spoonbill in the springtime. So some of the new guys that you see on the website, Kyler Beckman is doing some fishing reports. You might have seen the video. If you haven't, you should go check out the video section of the website. We did a little 20-minute unedited, just straight up what we were doing, fishing. Really cool episode, and I'm going to be trying to do that with a lot of these guys over the next year, where instead of shortening the video and cutting out all the stuff, it's going to show you the real deal as it happens, 20-minute segments where you can see exactly what's going on, and you're going to learn a lot. In that particular video with Kyler, we went into detail about what we were doing. He had a lot of really good tips, so be sure to check out that video section in general, and not just this one, but just peruse. There's a lot of really good stuff on there. We got stuff with Darren, Dylan, Hunter, Richard. We got to do some more stuff with Chet, which is going to be a lot easier now that I'm moved up full time to Clinton, Missouri. So really excited about the next year, and we appreciate all you guys for being members. That's what helps keep this thing going, and we're looking forward to doing a lot more of this over the next year. Of course, if you have any questions, any topics, suggestions that you want us to cover, write in. You can go to the contact page at the website. You can send a message in. Send a message to me at trumanlakefishingintel@gmail.com. You can reach out to these guys on their Facebook, shoot them a question, and then we can kind of cover it at these dinner meetings or in some of the reports. So that's what we're here for. That's what your membership is for, is to learn the most you can, to go out and catch as many fish and quality fish as you can on Truman Lake. So with that, we'll wrap her up. I want to just thank Nini's Italian Steakhouse and Catering one more time, Anglers Port Marine, and want to just mention all these guys one more time. Chet Dalthitz, it's Chet's Guide Service, is that what you call it? How do people get a hold of you?
Just Chet's Guide Service,
What's your phone number?
863-228-0347.
Okay, perfect. Chet does bass trips on Truman, and you'll do crappie trips.
I've got to learn these boys. It's all different crappie fishing than it was when I grew up. And I've got to get with these boys and let them show me. I've got a lot of scope, but I just got to learn how to use it a lot better.
That's right. Richard Bowling, of course, Richard Bowling's Guide Service. I can always remember the first 6 digits because you guys all have the same freaking phone number. 660-351.
5361.
Okay. See, I don't have that part down. Hunter does some guiding with Richard as well when he's available on the weekends. Dylan Stocking, Get Outdoors Guide Service. Dylan, what's your phone number?
660-351-4904.
Okay, that's how you get a hold of him. And then Darren Langford, Fishing Extraordinaire.
Yeah.
What's your phone
What's
number?
my phone?
You want to give your phone number out so fans can call you?
They call him enough when we were down there fishing Louisiana. More phone calls.
Email and shoot me an email.
Yeah, shoot me an email.
Well, hey guys, thanks a bunch for watching. We appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you on the next one. Till next time, we'll see you later.